let's start by introducing our guest, Thibaut, who is one of our first Starfish, and almost single-handedly saved my ass in 21 when the project management started to become too much of a almost impossible for me to handle alone, because we've had just completed the Dutch Bitcoin standard, and new titles were racking up, and there were teams opening in Telegram left and right, and it was just too much for me to handle alone. So Thibaut stepped in as project manager, and thank you for that, by the way, and started growing from there, and is now co-managing the company with me. And the beautiful part about that is that there was no job application or interview or anything like that. It was pure proof of works from start to finish. Thibaut started as a translator in the Dutch team first, and then once there was this need for more management, he raised to the occasion, and that's kind of like in a nutshell how the Starfish organization operates. But yeah, let's hear from Thibaut. What's your experience been like in working for Konsensus Network and this whole Starfish idea?
I should start with a bit of my background, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe you could tell a little bit about why you got involved, how you found us, and.
Well, yeah, I don't know if I would call myself the first Starfish. I was involved in the Dutch translation of the Bitcoin standard. I don't fully remember how I got involved there. I assume Twitter post that they were looking for volunteers to work on that. But that was the third book, I think. There was first the Finnish and the Portuguese version.
Yeah.
If I remember correct. And also the timeline is a bit unclear in my head. That was during 2020. But the Dutch version launched in December of 2020. And I was, at that time, I was writing a bit for my blog that I started. Maybe I should go back a little bit more about how I found Bitcoin and how we ended up here, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, why don't you back up and tell us your Orange Pill story?
Yeah, it's not super interesting or anything, but
it's always interesting.
I have a background in macroeconomics and finance. Started working for a Big Four auditing firm as a consultant in 2017. No, it was 16. The official title is consultant in the risk department. It was very related to auditing banks. A bunch of different projects. I worked in the Netherlands for about a year too. And it was during that time that I had a lot of time living in a hotel. That was during 17. It was a crazy market, right? During spring, I got interested. There were two stories that I had one colleague there who they started investing €60 a month with a couple of friends in a whole bunch of coins, right? There was another colleague that did the same, but they just saved money with the idea of creating a bit of a fund and then doing something fun with it. So I put those two together and started doing that too with seven of my friends. Started saving €20 a month per person, not huge amount, but that was good to like avoid all the traps during that period. Yeah, classic story, right? It was super hard to avoid all the shit coins during 2020.
Yeah.
And she didn't really know enough about it to really understand why it was all bullshit. But there was something there. Like, I knew there was something there, and I had to study, and you just continue reading a lot of podcasts. Half of the time, didn't really understand what they were talking about, but you just persevere and it becomes more clear. Bear market in 2018, but I just started reading more and more about why Bitcoin, the only one that really matters. It's a process. It takes time, right? Then in 2019, it took 4 years before I started running my own node. 2019, but by then all the reading just changed my thinking, and I couldn't really continue doing what I was doing. So I quit my job in March 2019. Really, the depths of the bear market there. I started reading a lot, writing, and traveling also with my now wife. I wanted to do something with Bitcoin, but like so many people, it's not easy, especially with the skills that I had. They didn't really add value in Bitcoin immediately. If you're not a developer, it's hard. Then it was already 2020 and somehow started translation of the Bitcoin standard. Only had a small part in that. And then I saw there was a project manager that was there for 3 days at Konsensus, and he had to go. He left after 3 days, and I thought, okay, this is something I can do. Let's message Nico, and now I'm here. It's been an interesting journey since then. There's a lot left to be done with Konsensus.
Yeah, that's a pretty similar story to mine, actually, and I think a lot of people have similar stories, orange pill stories. But the interesting point to me is that you actually quit your fiat job and fiat life, as I understand, the same way that I quit. Well, I quit my fiat life a little bit before. I tried a bunch of different things before landing into Konsensus Network. Like I started 2 different Starfish organizations with a bunch of other people. And we were kind of like finding the way of how to do this like properly. And I guess by accident, Konsensus seemed to work out because everybody just focused on doing what they like instead of trying to make it like top down and have like a finalized idea or product in mind. Yeah, things go the way they go, and then you start to focus on just the things that are important to you, and then other people who resonate with that idea just like you did join in and start doing the same thing. And I guess that's how you start you don't really start a Starfish organization, let's put it that way. Another one was We Economy, which is like an everything app, like a marketplace, almost like an eBay, but on Bitcoin economy, that you could just list your products or your services and trade them for Bitcoin. It was a very ambitious idea and project, and it still hasn't been done by anybody, for a good reason, probably because it will get shut down in no time. It's very difficult to have some kind of Bitcoin trading platform without getting into a lot of trouble. So that we couldn't make that work either. A lot of good ideas, but without implementation, idea is pretty worthless in a way. So I guess what we both saw in translating Bitcoin books and the Bitcoin standards specifically, that's how we got started, was to let people know what we knew, what we found out. And there's a lot of interest in this. Like, you wouldn't think that translating French books into French languages would be a good business idea, but that was just the business. I guess the business was not the first thing in our minds. It was just getting this information out and providing a valuable service, and that's what we're building on.
it's also important that you get some feedback from what you're doing. Like I said, I was starting my own blog. I was an anonymous profile writing about Bitcoin. Not that much people reading it, so that was a welcome change. That in the translation of the Bitcoin standard, you're working together with other people, and I think that's something that Konsensus Network offers all these different people working alone. Maybe we can bundle forces more, and people can join a community of people who are already doing that, writing about it, translating stuff. So, and I was also at that time doing a lot of self-hosting in the Bitcoin ethos, trying to set up my own Nextcloud. My node I had already set up earlier, but and then when I started project management, I thought, yeah, I can do more here, because I noticed that you were a bit overwhelmed, and you brought in a lot of different people. There were like 10 people helping out on different aspects, and yeah, I thought I can do more in here. First few months, I paced myself a bit, and I was only doing the project, trying to limit my time. But then in March of last year, I just said, I just want to do more here. I'm gonna start contributing pretty much full time, and I think that's an important thing. That, like, it's a bit of a hurdle if you want to work in the space and on Bitcoin projects. You often just have to start. It's not like there's an interview and you get a contract with a salary, right? It doesn't really work like that, especially not with a startup organization like Konsensus, like growing a lot, and there's not that much budget for a lot of different roles. So yeah, you have to build out your own niche a bit and try to add value wherever you can.
Yeah, it takes a lot of faith to go full time in something like this, when we all have bills to pay, and when there's no certainty of any kind of salary. You either have to have like a side income or a fiat job or something, which is the case for most Starfish. I think we have kind of like a lot of people doing some freelancing or just helping out on their free time. But there's not many who do this full time. Maybe only the two of us. And yeah, I think it takes a very special kind of a mindset to see the value in accumulating kind of this reputational informational capital that is going to pay out in the long term. It's not only about altruistically just sacrificing yourself. It's more like building something that is lasting, like a company that is going to create future cash flow. So it's a big risk, of course, and to be able to do that, you have to fully believe in the mission and believe that we can make it work, and that there will be a lasting demand for the service, which I think we both share. That was my idea from the beginning. Like, when interest in Bitcoin goes up, the number go up, and well, then people want to learn more about this topic and read those books, and to make them available in languages, different languages, because not everybody is good enough in English to be able to fully understand those original books that are very important. I mean, personally, I read books only in English, but I still started specializing in translation, because I want everybody to have access to this knowledge, and I guess that's the core of what we're doing still to this day, even though we are already expanded into English titles and a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, I definitely want to keep that the translation as a core value, and the localization of the content as a core value of the company, going forward as well. Even though some of the translations, they're not going to make any money anytime soon, maybe in a long enough run. But yes, we're far away from any kind of mainstream adoption for Bitcoin, let alone Bitcoin books. Like, people in general don't read books, nonfiction books anyway. So it is kind of like could be very hard to see the value proposition unless you've gone through kind of like the thought process that we both have. And it's rare to find people like you, and that's why it's so great to find like-minded people. And for me personally, it's the best crowd of people that I've ever worked with, and I don't want to work with anybody except Bitcoiners anymore. Like, it's there's no point to me in doing that. Like, you can always make a case that because Bitcoin price is low, I would be good to mine fiat and be in a fiat job and keep stacking sats. I don't blame anybody who does that. It's a very reasonable thing. But yeah, I applaud anybody who sees the vision and thinks that this is an even better use of time than simply stacking sats to stack the reputational capital and to stack the sort of sweat equity that we are running on, and then in the hopes to cash in that later. I mean, we're not a non-profit, even though we're currently, technically we are a non-profit because we're not making profit yet. But that's not the goal. Like, it's just like any startup, it takes time to build out. And I think what we're building here is starting to be pretty resilient. We have more than 60 titles under our belt now, grew from 1 in 2019 when I started the company. So the library is expanding. The library is always going to be there. It's static content that we poured our time and sweat into. And if you believe that Bitcoin is going to make it, and even if it doesn't, we'll still have a publishing business that can be repurposed to something else. So it's kind of like stacking this reputational capital and sweat equity instead of Satoshis. And if you can see that it's more worthwhile to do that, then that's your choice of action. And yeah, like what I like to say about this holding Bitcoin versus wielding Bitcoin, this is the definition of wielding Bitcoin. So investing your time and resources and your Satoshis into something that you think is going to bring a bigger return one way or another in a longer time horizon.
What you said about repurposing the publishing business, I think that's an interesting question. I thought about too. Let's say we're right about this and we go to a future where Bitcoin is the money, then you don't really need Bitcoin information, because like the goldfish in water, right? It's just there. Everyone needs the Bitcoin. So how does Konsensus look to you in that world?
Well, in that, like, let's say that we go to in some kind of a Bitcoin standard. I think the demand for Bitcoin knowledge is still not going to go down, because there's always going to be more people, new people are born every day, right? I mean, within 20 years, there's going to be new people who's going to want to learn about Bitcoin, and it's how the technology works. Granted, that's not ever going to be the majority. Like, most people, I don't believe, ever are going to be interested. Just like people are not interested how internet works. They're not out lining to get books about how internet protocol works or programming or any of that. However, some people are, and once it becomes mainstream, that pool of people, no matter how small the amount of from the total people in the world, that might be, it's still a viable business. It's just going to be still fringe literature compared to something like Harry Potter or that kind of books, or Lord of the Rings. We're never going to be there necessarily, but we're still going to have specialized books on specialized topic that is going to be mainstream. So there will be, in that case, if Bitcoin succeeds, But I always like to remind people that it is possible that Bitcoin doesn't succeed. So I'm also planning for that. And well, my bet is that books, they have been around for quite a long time, and they have a huge Lindy effect. So I don't think knowledge consumption in that form, in book form, is going to go anywhere anytime soon. To me, it makes perfect sense. It's a win-win situation with Konsensus Network, because even if Bitcoin doesn't work out, we still have the publishing house, and we can still publish books about economics or whatever, like Austrian economics, which is something that I'm looking to expand to, more kind of like self-help books, how to increase your freedom and your liberty, how to kind of like exit this fiat life, what are the tools to use, and books are great tools to accumulate this kind of information. And no matter what happens, there's always going to be information that we want people to have and that people need. So in that sense, like it's just a matter of us adapting into the challenges in the future. I mean, we already have built a pretty solid working company in publishing books, and it's, I guess, a long enough time horizon, we just become another publishing company, but with a very important difference is that we operate on the Starfish principle, which is nothing new. Like it's not like we invented this concept. Like it's a lot of companies, like Amazon included, started as a Starfish organization. And by the way, if, you should check out a book called Starfish and Spider, the Power of Leaderless Organization, which was one of the most influential books that I read. And that's why I started all this. I tried to make it work in different projects, because I realized that even in my fiat life, I was already that kind of Starfish leader. I always led my teams from the trenches, like from within and not from top down. And I found success even in my fiat life with that method. I just didn't know what to call it. It was always there. So I think that's something very fundamental to human action and human cooperation and division of labor, to focus on your specific skill set, what you're good at, and then inspire others rather than command others. And I realized that my role in the world, not just in Bitcoin world, but in general, is a catalyst to provide these frameworks that I think are good, that other people can use, and then grow into this organization by using their own specific skill set. Like, for example, you can come from a project management and financial background, so you have a specific skill set that you've accumulated, and now you can put it into use in this kind of a Starfish organization, and probably several others going forward. So I think that's going to be not only for this specific company, but in general in the future. I think the future of businesses and companies is going to be much more distributed, much more, maybe even somebody might say chaotic, but it's not like we lack hierarchy. Like, hierarchy is always important in a company, to be able to know who is going to be in charge of which part of the operation, so that we don't just always, like in a boat, we don't want to be rowing in different directions. Everybody's rowing in the same direction, but everybody has a different role in the boat, so to speak.
It's also the natural consequence of the overview that you have of the information that you have of all the facets inside Konsensus Network right now, in the publishing business that we have right now. Like, and I think we need to do a better job at communicating all the different aspects better. We focused a lot on translators and proofreading, editing, and that's what we know for. But like you said, everyone has specialties, and I think there's a lot more that Consensus Network can do, and that we need help with, and that we can build out more aspects of the business, like audiobooks, marketing, or local connections with bookstores. There's a lot to do, right? I think we need to try and start communicating that better this year. It should be a priority for us, and something I'm going to focus on. And yeah, it's hard to see. I think it's the same like Bitcoin growing as a sort of underground network. I have a similar feeling with what we're building here with Consensus. We've built a network of people in a bunch of Telegram groups, and that's the strength of Consensus, but it's not visible. And yeah, I think it's just the start. That's the most important thing, that we have a sort of like a machine that is well oiled, and we're just a platform that can connect all different people that want to do something. And I think we've come a long way already, and I'm looking forward to this year. What we have when we can start. I think this year we will be able to expand a bit more and show more of those other aspects.
Yeah, that's one reason for this podcast, to shed some light on how we actually operate, and to give the stand also to other starfish and hear their stories. And my vision is that I'm successful once I've made myself unnecessary to the operation. Like it doesn't mean that I'm ever going to leave the company or anything is too important. But I also don't want it to be depending on me. Like if anything would happen to me, then I want the company to go on. And that's a very important part of the Starfish organization, not only the resilience, but actual anti-fragility. So it will just grow stronger over time. And with adversity, it will like a starfish, when you cut it into half, it becomes two starfish. So whenever we have challenges, we just adapt and reassess. And yes, it's maybe sometimes chaotic, or it can be slower than in a top-down spider organization, which is very clear and very efficient when you have a clear goal. But we don't really have a clear goal. Like our goal is to further education in this specific topic right now, but that goal may have to change with the times. We can't hold on to it if things change. I mean, nobody knows the future. So if we're not able to evolve around it and develop around it, then we're going to fail, and then we will become just another spider organization, and I try to avoid that. But yeah, of course, we do have a kind of a spider organization, because we still live in the fiat land, and we have to have licensing and contracts with suppliers and so on. So we actually do have a company. But yeah, I don't know, maybe in the future that becomes less relevant. Like I would say, like if I wasn't into publishing, I would probably never even start a company. Like uncorporated Bitcoin companies are my favorites, and you can probably do that with a software project. But we are still working, like we are very heavily tied to MeetSpace, and MeetSpace is almost completely tied into the fiat world. So we kind of a bridge. Also, like you can think of Konsensus Network as a bit of a bridge between the fiat world and the Bitcoin economy or Bitcoin world, where we bridge these two together in a way that allows more people to move slowly away from fiat. Because it's not like a overnight thing. You just decide that, okay, I'm done with fiat. I mean, I guess for some people it could be, but a lot of people are heavily invested in the fiat life. They have families to support, and to be able to earn a living wage on Bitcoin is tough in any kind of a company right now. But yeah, that's the direction we're going.
Yeah, just because of the physical nature of books, right? You have to do distribution for those, but in principle, for content, the contributors that translate and make books, for the part that's not physical, you don't really need a company. But of course, yeah, for the physical book, you need to have reach-based operation. But I think there we're also really growing a network of like-minded hubs. Or we're working a lot with Bitcoiners actually for distribution more and more in different countries. So we're also really building a network to distribute these goods. So if we ever want to somehow it becomes impossible for us to operate in fiat world, we would still have those connections, right? That's another important part of consensus that we need to keep in mind and design decisions, I guess, that we also want to be ready for that.
Yeah, definitely. Like we always want to be a few steps ahead of possible deplatforming in any form. Like, for example, Amazon could deplatform us and shut us down, or our meat space distribution partners can decide to deplatform us. Both of those things have happened in past. So yeah, it's something that we are working on, building this meat space distribution network of our own. Like that's a long-term goal, definitely. So then we can't be deplatformed, and like one thing is the physical books, but the information of those books, it's already kind of decentralized, and it's on multiple servers and computers. Like the work is done already. Like all of the books are stored in right now they're on my private GitHub, but in theory, I mean, we have some intellectual property fiat things to worry about, but in theory we could make all of those books and all of those translations open source and take pull requests for them from the public, and in that case anybody could keep doing this, and then maybe one day we'll have our own printing operation somewhere, which could be shut down, sure, but it's going to be increasingly difficult if we have more these distributed hubs, like you put it, these Starfish hubs. It's kind of like Bitcoin network. Like you can't really go and bomb every node to eradicate Bitcoin. Like you would need some kind of like a solar flare event or a global EMP to shut down all the nodes. And even in that case, that's when we go back to like these physical books, because those are actually already printed and they're around. Like to be able to destroy what we build and what we created will be immensely difficult task, if not impossible.
A very actionable way to help further Bitcoin adoption. Already alluded to it, but when you're on your own writing articles about Bitcoin, you don't really get feedback on it. But now you see books being printed, they go in the wild. People may or may not read them, but at least the information is out there, right? But one thing I do struggle with a bit sometimes is the licenses. We talk about, okay, someday maybe we want to open source that, but that's not entirely clear in my head that how we're gonna move to such a model and how that would work. But yeah, falling down a rabbit hole, it's also a side rabbit hole where intellectual property, everything should be open source, right? So I think we should start with that and already see what content we can make available as free content.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's already authors like Gigi, for example, who did the 21 lessons open source from the get-go. Like he clearly gets it. And I think more and more authors are going to go that way. Like there's no reason not to. yeah, of course, everybody wants to get paid for their work in one way or another. I guess this goes back to the whole idea of reputational capital. And for example, these bootleg copies that are going to be available of every single book, like you can't stop it. Like you can't stop information. You can put in place all kinds of DRM, like digital rights management tools for ebooks, but it's never, somebody's going to circumvent that, and it's going to be out in the open if the book is good enough, of course. So I think it's just a matter of time, a switch in mindset. Right now, we still have to accommodate the wishes of the authors. Like if they don't want the book to be freely available, we can't really overrule them and do that for them. But maybe, yeah, you're right. We should start pushing for it at least and make that option available. And like I said, I've been already saving them in a GitHub. So technically, that would be possible today to open source all of our books. But practically, we need to onboard and make sure that everybody's okay with that before we do that. We can't just decide to do that as a publisher. And yeah, of course, another thing is that some authors have already signed contracts with traditional publishers. So then we are in contract with those publishing houses, which are oftentimes these really dinosaur-style spider organizations who are protecting their intellectual property really carefully. And it's just one of those fiat things that are going to be increasingly fading away. But yeah, at the moment, we are kind of like trying to bridge the gap between open information and providing good enough service that we can actually get paid no matter if the information is available for free, which it should be, in my opinion. Like I think it's not taking away from the business model. It's actually adding to the business model, because similarly to like pirate software, like I've always been an advocate of pirate software, even though at the moment I use a lot of paid software too. And that's kind of like the whole point. Like when you're starting a new business, or you're young and you know, you're dropping off high school and you want to start doing stuff, you don't really have any money to pay hundreds of euros for licenses. So you get a pirate software, and then you learn your trade and you become really good at it. And then you start your business, and then, well, you probably want the latest updates and you want the latest software. So you have the cash flow to pay for that. So that actually feeds into the business model in the long enough time horizon. So I think this kind of like guarding intellectual property is kind of counterproductive. And but it's a long process to get over that, and for people to see the long-term value. Because if you make a software, you make a book free right away, then of course the immediate thought is, okay, nobody's going to buy this, nobody's going to pay me for this, I'm just going to make it available for free. But especially for books, I think like what we are offering is an experience, a service. Like you get a physical book, it's different. Like it's not, you can't get a physical book for free. And even for ebooks, we offer a service. Like you can get it downloaded very easily through a platform and read it on your device, instead of finding it somewhere for free or reading it on a web page or a PDF. It's a different service, and audiobooks are also the same. So I guess some kind of a service model for books instead of like simply selling the physical or electronic books. Maybe a little bit more about the software that we use, because that's something that you've been working hard on and developing. Like I started with only using open source software. Well, partly out of necessity, because didn't have any money when I started, and partly because of the ideology I wanted to use. I didn't want to use Google and Microsoft and Apple software. I wanted to use those ones that are free and open source. And I think the open source tools are getting really good. They're still not at the productivity level of like the spider organization produced tools, which is what we currently use because they're just more efficient. But I think there's a lot to be said about that development as well. And like you mentioned, the Nextcloud before, like we're using that instead of Google Drive for sharing the work and collaborating. And there are a bunch of other software related developments. Maybe you can go into that a little bit.
Yeah, I like it, the Nextcloud. I don't know if everyone else who's using it is super happy with it. It takes a bit more effort to learn. Not people are used to their Google products, right? And we have to be honest. They have a good product, right? But I think we need to be true to the ethos of Bitcoin. Like I said, I was spending a lot of time when I started last year on just doing that on my own, and I just saw opportunities. And also because of the nature of our organization, we have a lot of people. The paid software just becomes prohibited. So we're kind of forced to look for those open source tools. There's also other parts of our business where our web shop, for instance, we made a different choice. So it's an ongoing process. For my personal life, I noticed that I kind of goes in phases. Sometimes I focus a lot on only using the open source version. But then, I have to be honest that I think my productivity sometimes drops a little bit, and then I go back a bit. But bit by bit, I think the software becomes better, and we have to use the tools.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you have to pick your battles to some extent. Like, I also had to start use Adobe software because of the productivity increase. And I don't say that spider organizations or centralized software is bad per se. Like that's how you get a top tier service, right? With a centralized party in charge and developing it. But there's caveats that you need to be aware of that. Like, for example, when you're working with sensitive data and you don't really know how they handle it and you don't know what they do with your stuff. So you got to be aware of those things. And moving forward towards Bitcoin standard, I think what we're going to see is just better centralized companies, like better custodian services, better software companies that are going to be providing better alternatives, because the open source software is so powerful now. Like, they won't be able to compete with that. And the only way to compete with that is just simply providing better service with the upsides of open source software. So maybe a centralized company can make their software, which a lot of companies do already, to make their software open source, but still keep developing it like a centralized company and just providing a better service.
Yeah, there's a role for Konsensus there, I think, too, as a sort of an aggregator of the content, because that's part of what we do, right? You're somewhat curating or aggregating content, but then I also wonder, like, what is the difference between aggregating, curating, and censoring? Well, we in the past we've had shitcoiners reach out to us that want to get their book published, right? But then we're censoring that basically by saying, sorry, no, don't do that. But I think that is a role that I see for Konsensus in the future, that we are somewhat of an aggregator of the information that we think is important, that we want people to read. But I don't know. It's not I don't know if I'm really super comfortable with that position right now. Like, at least not on my own, right?
Yeah, I get what you mean. Like, censorship kind of has this bad ring to it for a good reason, because usually it's means that somebody's trying to suppress some information and make it unavailable. And I think what a lot of people confuse is freedom of speech versus moderation or curation, like we are doing. So, like for example, Konsensus is a platform, and the platform has moderators. It's a private company, just like, for example, Twitter. Like Twitter gets blamed for censorship all the time because it's so big. It's the town square of the internet. That's what they say. So people confuse this like freedom of speech and the rules and the contracts of a platform. So we have rules, like we have editorial guidelines at Konsensus. We can't just make everybody's information available. That's what internet does, right? I mean, you're free to start your own platform. But if you choose to join a platform, you have to abide by the rules of the platform. And that's not censorship. That's just a contract that you agree to, or you're free not to agree to. You still have your freedom of speech. You just can't have the freedom of speech on that platform. So I think that's a source of a lot of the confusion. And yes, we are doing censorship in that sense that we're not going to make everybody's voice available through our platform. However, that does not impede their freedom of speech, because they don't have freedom to publish anything they want on our platform, because we make the rules, and you don't have to agree with our rules. Then you can do it on your own or use a different platform.
Yeah, but it's a very delicate line to walk, even inside Bitcoin only. There are still certain ideas that may or may not be accepted, or it's just a weird position.
Yeah, I mean, like, let's think about Bitcoin for a second. Like, it's often Bitcoin proponents say that Bitcoin is a censorship-free platform, but actually it's just censorship-resistant. So that doesn't mean that in Bitcoin network there's no ability to censor transactions, for example. There is. It's just it allows that. It can handle it. It can handle bad actors. Censorship as it is, it can never be eradicated. Like, that would be censorship, right? I mean, it's censorship in a way is within freedom of speech. Like, you can say that, you can't say that. You can't ban somebody from banning somebody, because that's free. That's freedom. Like, you have the freedom to act retardedly. Like, you that's your freedom, and I'll die protecting that hill of freedom of speech. Like, you have the right to make bad calls and carry the responsibility and the weight of those calls. And I guess our role is just to do what we think is right, and not everybody's ever going to agree, and that's fine. That's not what consensus is. Consensus is not that everybody agrees. It's just something that enough people gravitate towards. And just like Bitcoin, like, not everybody, most people don't agree with the value proposition of the network, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist and doesn't provide value. Just to those who want to use Bitcoin, or those who want to use Konsensus, they are free to do so within the rules of the network.
Rough consensus. We need to improve on a lot of aspects, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, we've been operating only for a little bit over 3 years, so it's a startup. We're only getting started, and it seems like every year is crazier than the last one. I don't know. We'll see. I'm just excited to be on this journey, and I'm nowhere near done. I mean, only getting started, and people like you joining in, it just makes me completely bullish about not only Bitcoin, but also entrepreneurship in general, life in general, like what we can build together with division of labor and, freedom of speech, freedom of doing whatever the hell you want to do without anybody telling you can't do that. And we'll just find more people who agree with what we think is right, and we change our model all the time. We change our rules all the time. Once we get more data, more people join the network. Just like Bitcoin, it's not like it's the same as 10 years ago. It keeps evolving, and new challenges emerge, new attack vectors, new needs from the market emerges. So we adapt to those, and that's beautiful. It's organic. It's just life. Maybe we can wrap up with your vision for Konsensus. What are you most excited about, and what are you developing, and what are you working on right now?
So for this year, I hope that we can really move the project management to new candidates in the different language regions where we have people that we trust, the editors and project managers. That I hope that I can give that a bit way and focus on some other things, mainly accounting in the coming weeks and months. Try to give more visibility into our operation to the important people who are working for us. I mean, they deserve that information, so we need to give it. So yeah, from the accounting system, then also flows more options where we can move to more frequent payouts for contributors and authors. I think that's a really important thing that we need to get done this year, moving from paying once a year to contributors towards monthly. Of course, there's like when you work with Amazon, they delay and you have to wait until the end of the month. But the more we go towards audiobooks on our own platform, ebooks, and we can actually start moving towards even faster payouts if we have that whole system in place. So we could theoretically, Lightning would enable us to basically stream the sats when ebooks or audiobooks are sold. It could go straight to all the parties involved. A bit like the value for value model that people all the hype, but we do have a role in that, or there is stuff we can do or we can experiment with. I'm not sure how it's gonna look, but it's something that we should explore. And then, yeah, how does Konsensus look? Well, we need to focus more on the original titles. It's new for us, right? We've only done 2 to 3 now, so I think we have a lot to prove. But I already see some key Starfish coming up that are going to help us there. And yeah, we need to build out that market, show to the world that we offer value to authors, and just continue to build, continue to focus on quality. And I think we need to also get more graphic designers involved and like make every book really a piece of art. Yeah, there's just so much. It's too much. There's too much to do, but that's what makes it fun, right? And we'll see where we end up. Also, non-Bitcoin books doing more. The obvious topics are Bitcoin, economics, freedom, but there's so much more that is like tangential to Bitcoin, where we also could be like a venue where like the ideas that don't get published elsewhere, like or about health or about agriculture or privacy, or I don't know, just yeah. There's a lot to do, right? And I hope we can find more people that join us. It's not easy during the bear market, right? The interest from Starfish is a bit correlated to the price too. So, but yeah, the people we have now, like if you're with us now, I think it says a lot about why you're in this, and it's a good place to be. Like we have a great team, and yeah, I just hope we can keep everyone involved. And our first focus is to give more information about how we operate and some more insights into the numbers, because we lack that internally. That's what I'm focusing now.
Yeah, well said. It is kind of overwhelming sometimes. It seems like there's more and more work that needs to be done. And in the bear market, I've actually been happy with the engagement that we've been getting and new people coming in, especially for original works. Maybe the translation side has been dying down with the Bitcoin price a little bit, but that's to be expected. I think going forward, the people who truly get it, what we're doing here, they will emerge, especially in the bear markets, because it's mostly signal out there, and mostly people are focusing on building. That's what I like about bear markets. And once the bull market is there, there's a lot of hype and excitement, and maybe people buy books and then put them in the shelves and never read them. But and people are more inclined to spend their sats when the price is going up, obviously. But that being said, I've been happy to, like, last year was surprisingly good considering everything, and I think we're doing just fine. More people are joining in.
That's a really good point. It feels like it's a bear market only in price, when just not about consensus, but when you see the activity that is going on everywhere, so much to do on all fronts, and by the end of the year, things are going to look completely different again.
Yep, looking forward to that. So for the end, do you want to share any details of if people want to get in touch with you, your Twitter or anything like that?
My Twitter handle is Sovereign Hodl, or Sovereign Hodl. Can't even remember now. So yeah, that's the only place. If you want to reach out, you can find me there or in the Konsensus Network group.
Yeah, on Telegram. Everybody who's in our Telegram groups probably knows Thibaut already.
Yeah, I live there.
Yeah, same with me. All right, Thibaut, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining in, and thank you for joining Konsensus. Couldn't do this without you, definitely.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and talk later.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.